Okay, yesterday we left off on Beis and Aleph on 2A. We're presumably, what side are we on? On 2A, we are on side 2A, let's say AB. Tana Hatam Koy, top of the page. Tana Hatam Koy. The Tana, the Gemara says, it's coming all from the Sefer Sanhedrin. Good morning. What does that mean? The Gemara asked the question. The Gemara had a couple of questions. Good morning, Aaron. The Gemara's question was, the Mishnah opens up and says, how do Eidim become Zomimim? Right? Just to bring everybody up to date. The Mishnah stated, Kate said Eidim Nasim Zomimim. How do Eidim become framers? Framers in the sense, the Torah talks about if witnesses frame somebody, the Torah says you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the other guy. That's the classic case of Eidim Zomimim. So the Mishnah opens up and says, how do witnesses become Zomimim? How does that happen? And then the Mishnah tells us cases that you don't do to them what they wanted to do to others. So that was bothering the Gemara.
Can you go open the chickens?
You open up indicating how witnesses become Zomimim, and then you tell us how they don't.
Why not?
Hey, that's the Gemara question. If the
That's
Gemara
how
says
you
you
open
should
the
say how
student
Eidim
piece,
do
you
not
know?
become Zomimim. You should have said how Eidim you don't do to them what they wanted to do to others. If you're telling me the cases that you don't do to them, that's what you should have said. You should open up. How do
Just open the
witnesses
chicken.
become Zomimim? If you're telling me how, good morning, Jaime. Good morning. If you're telling me how you don't do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to others, so the Mishnah should have started. Kate said, "Ein ha'edim nasim zomimim."
No, so see, you can do things if you want to.
The framers in general. Is that clear?
You can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, let them see it.
Yeah, but if you make a statement, how do witnesses become Zomimim? You make such a statement,
Yeah.
you have to follow through and tell us how they become Zomimim. If you tell me how they become framers, and the typical understanding of being framers mean, you hear that, Nathan? Framers mean you do to them what they wanted to do to others. Do to the witnesses who framed somebody, we do what they wanted to do to others. So then the Mishnah should tell us how that happened. And yet the Mishnah tells us how you don't do to them what they want to do to others. The Mishnah gave a case that the witnesses came and said that the person is a son of a divorcee, that the father was a Kohen and the mother was previously divorced. And as a result of their testimony, the guy was going to lose, the son of the Kohen was going to lose his rights to Trumah. Because if his mother was a divorcee, a Kohen can't marry a divorcee, and then the child will not be able to eat Trumah. And they framed the child. And now two other witnesses come and say, how could you guys say that you witnessed their mother getting divorced on that day, in that town? You with us at a total different place. You couldn't have been there. You couldn't have witnessed such a thing, right? So we say, the Mishnah says, what do we do to the witnesses? And even if the witnesses are Kohanim, we don't do to the Kohanim what they want to do to the We don't say the Kohen, these Kohanim who testified lose their rights to eat Trumah. No. What do we do to the Kohanim that were the false witnesses? We give them lashes. We give them Makkos, the court ministers lashes. We don't do to them what they want to the others. So that's the Gemara's question. You opened up the Mishnah by saying, how do witnesses become Zomim? How do they become framers? And yet you tell us how they don't have the normal law of framing. That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara answers the following. If the Mishnah would be independent Mishnah on its own, you're right. The question of the Mishnah, the answer of the Mishnah doesn't fit. But our Mishnah is a takeoff of Tractate Sanhedrin, the end of Masechah Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin, it discussed different types of framers, different cases of framers. The general case, morning, Ariel's back. The normal case of framers would be the normal witnesses that frame somebody and you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to others. And then we have the new case that the Sanhedrin, it talks about the following case. What was he made room, by the way, Ariel. There's a Gemara right there. There's a small Gemara right there. And what was the case that the Sanhedrin was talking about? The case was the following. Two witnesses said about a certain woman, a certain married woman. Two witnesses said that she had an affair with somebody, that they witnessed her sleeping with another man. That was the two witnesses come and say there. And they say it happened on a certain date in a certain town in a certain place. And God bless you. That's what the witnesses said. Two other witnesses say, come to court, and they say, you guys, you couldn't have been there to witness such a thing. You say this affair happened in New York on a certain day. You with us in China. We were in China. You couldn't have seen it. You were with us in China on that day and that time. We know you were in China with us on that Sunday. We went out to eat together in China. You couldn't have been there, you guys. So now, what do we do to those witnesses, right? The first pair of witnesses framed this guy and this girl. They framed this married woman. They framed this man, and they said that she had an affair. So with general rule, as you would say, do to them what they wanted to do to her and to him. Now, what they wanted to do to her, the rule is this girl that they spoke about happened to be a bat Kohen, a daughter of a Kohen. And the rule is the daughter of a Kohen is caught. A married daughter of a Kohen is caught, God bless you, doing such a sin, cheating on her husband. The law is she gets streifa. What does that mean, streifa? We don't burn her. We give her hot lead, and she drinks it, and she dies. It's a heavy type of punishment. That's what we do to such a woman. What do we do to the man who she had an affair with? We do chenek. Chenek is technically called strangulation. That they take a garment and they pull the garment around his neck, and the person dies like that. That's the punishment for such a serious stuff, right? That's a punishment for that type of sin. It's lighter than it would seem that it seems like there's 4 levels of punishment. I think the order is like this. First level is cheret. Cheret is the sword, getting killed by a sword. That's the lightest of the 4 capital punishments. Then would come chenek, the strangulation. Then comes streifa, the hot lead, and then comes skila, it's the stoning. I think that should be according to one opinion, that's the 4 levels of capital punishment. Now, again, how often did the court mete out capital punishment? Very rare. Because in order to get capital punishment, what has to be done? The person has to be warned. And also, you have to have 2 witnesses witnessing this act. Now, how many people are going to do an act, have an affair with somebody in front of 2 witnesses that people are watching? Very rare with such a thing happening, especially and they also have to be warned. If you do this sin, you're going to get killed. People going to do it. It's very, it's a very rare. And then all the questioning of the court to verify the witnesses, the testimony was a whole process. It wasn't just, and therefore it was very rare that someone got killed. But the fact that the Torah.
And they have to be on the same angle, seeing it and everything.
There's a lot of different requirements. And therefore, but so what's the point of having capital punishment if it's very rarely you actually did it? Was because the point was to show the people the severity of the sin. So if you go learn the Chumash and you learn the Chumash, even though very rarely they actually do it to the guy, but the fact that that is the law and that is the punishment shows the people how serious the crime is. And therefore that it serves for that purpose alone. Now, what's the law if the witnesses who framed this daughter of a Kohen, what's the law? What do we do to those witnesses? Now, they wanted to obligate this young lady, this married young daughter of a Kohen, they wanted to obligate her streifa, the hot lead, and they wanted to obligate the guy who had the affair with, the alleged guy who had the affair with her, they wanted to obligate him strangulation. But the fact that they wanted to obligate her the higher level of streifa, of lead, you would think we should do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to her, which was they wanted to do to her and to him. But included in what they wanted to do to the alleged guy, they wanted to do to her, which was the higher level punishment. So therefore, the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin that we're not going to give the witnesses who framed this daughter of a Kohen, we're not going to give them what they wanted to do to her. They wanted her to get hot lead. We're not going to do to them what they want to do to her. Rather, we will give to them what they wanted to do to him, the alleged guy who had the affair with her, which was chenek, which was a strangulation. And the Gemara says, because it says, "Vasisim lo kashezamam lasod la'achiv." You do to the witness what they wanted to the brother, meaning to say, if there's a sister involved and a brother, meaning a Jewish man and a Jewish girl involved, meaning the alleged guy who had the affair and the daughter of a Kohen, you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to their brother, not to their sister. Their sister, so to speak, the girl is their sister, so to speak, not biological sister, but broad sister. All Jews are brothers and sisters, so to speak. But Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, like the Torah says, don't charge interest to your brother. It's not referring to your biological brother, it's referring to all Jews are referred to brothers. So therefore, we have a special law when it comes to framing a daughter of a Kohen, that the witnesses don't get exactly what they wanted to do to her. They only get what they wanted to do to what? To him. Okay? So that's what our mission is coming off of. Our mission now comes down mission that says like this. I have a third category. That not only this category is that you don't even do anything of what the witnesses wanted to do to the people they framed. Meaning category number, again, category 1, category 2, category 3. Category 1 is you do to the witnesses exactly what they wanted to do. Category 2 is you don't do exactly what they wanted to do. That's the category of the daughter of the Kohen, because they wanted to kill, they wanted to create a death of hot leads for the woman, and they don't get that. Category 3 is our mission. They don't even get anything of what they wanted to do. That's our mission. Our mission comes over and says there's another case of Zomer, another category that the framers don't get anything what they wanted to do to the people. Rather, they get a total different punishment. And what is that punishment called? Lashes. Makkos. The name of the character is called Makkos, lashes. That's what they're going to get. So in the case when they framed, and the Mishnah gives us 2 exceptions. If let's say they framed the Kohen and they said that his mother was previously divorced, so that situation when they said the mother was previously divorced, and then they were found out to be framers, that they weren't there at the divorce, because 2 other witnesses says, you with us, we give those witnesses lashes for framing this Kohen. And then the Mishnah has another case. If 2 witnesses say a guy Reuven killed Shimon. We know Shimon is dead. We don't know how Shimon died. 2 witnesses come into court and they say, you know how Reuven died? You know how Shimon died? Reuven killed him unintentionally. Now the law is if you kill someone unintentionally, you got to run to Galut, you got to run to exile. You have to wait there until the Kohen Gadol dies. So what happens? So now these 2 people say that we witnessed, we were there on that day, on that Sunday, that Reuven killed Shimon unintentionally. Then 2 other witnesses come and say, guys, you were with us in China that day. You could have been in New York on that day. That you say you witnessed that Reuven was the one who did it. You're lying. You were with us on that day. So what do we do to those witnesses? So you would have said you should tell those witnesses, you should punish them, that they should have to go to exile. They wanted to cause this guy to go to exile. They should go to exile, because the general rule is you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the other guy. But here's another exception to the rule. If you frame someone and you're framing them and you wanted to cause them to go to exile, those witnesses who framed them do not go to exile. They get lashes also. And again, the Gemara is going to have to explain why are these exceptions to the general rule. That's what the Gemara says. Good morning. Looks like Morris, I think, must have joined. So that's what the Gemara says. Sefer Sanhedrin, correct. So that's what the Gemara says. Now on the top of the page of article Beis Amud Aleph 2, 8-2, top of the page. The Gemara says, the Tana Hatam Kai. We're coming off of everyone have it? It's about the middle of the page. Nathan, you got it? Tana Hatam Kai. Is that what it says at the beginning of the right? Tana Hatam Kai. Jaime, you have it? Tana Hatam Kai. The Tana is coming off of that Mishnah. And now the Gemara says what the Mishnah stated. It says over there, Kol HaZomimim, all the witnesses that are Zomimim, all the witnesses that came, that were found to be framers, they framed this guy, meaning they were found that two other witnesses come and say, you guys were with us on that day at that time, and you could not have seen this testimony that you came to court about. Kol HaZomimim, all the Zomimim. I don't think there's any more of the Gemara down there. We use them up. You can use that Gemara, Hebrew Gemara. Kol HaZomimim Magdimim L'Oto Mita. All framers, we give them the type of death penalty that they wanted to put upon the person they testified against. However, chutz, there's an exception that we don't give them the penalty that they wanted to give to the person. Mezomimei bat Kohen u'ba'ala. The people who framed the daughter of a Kohen, and they framed the daughter of the Kohen, and they framed the alleged person who had the affair with the daughter of the Kohen. They framed the daughter of the Kohen. They said she slept with somebody. So they framed two people, the daughter of the Kohen and the alleged person who had relations with her. She'ein magdimin lo tomita. We do not give the witnesses the type of capital punishment that they wanted to give to the woman, to the daughter of the Kohen, which was shreifa. They wanted to give her hot lead. What do? We give the witnesses a different type of capital punishment, which is, morning, Mr. Asbury. The type of capital punishment we give to the woman, to the witnesses, is chenek, is strangulation. That's what we give to them. So we don't do to them exactly what they wanted to do to her. Rather, we do to them what they wanted to do to him, the one they alleged who had the relations with her. Now, yesh edim, on that comes our Tana. Our Tana says, yesh edim zomim achirim. There is another case of edim she'ein osim b'hazama kol ikar. We don't fulfill the do to them what they want to do to others at all. There's another case that we don't do to them at all what they want to do to others. Ella malchut hapoim. We give them. Are you using that tomorrow or not? You got the one on your computer. What do? We don't do to them what we don't do anything of what they want to do to others. What do we do to them? We give them malchut. Ella malchut hapoim. We give them the lashes. And that's what our Mishnah says. Means how the witnesses, what's the case that witnesses become framers, that they have the status that they framed somebody. And how does they become framers mean? Two other witnesses said that you guys are with us. So that means the first pair of witness framed somebody, right? Everyone knows what I mean when I say frame somebody. Is that clear? Mr. Haver, is that clear? What's the case? How do these framers, what is the case that these framers, we do not do to them at all what they wanted to do to the person they framed? What is that case? That's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is the extreme exception to the rule, that we don't do to them what they want to do to others. And what is that case? Meaning in general, there's a pasuk that says, Vasisem lo. You do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the other guy. It comes our Mishnah, it says that the extreme exception to that rule. What is the case? That's our Mishnah. Ketzad, if the witnesses came and they said, we testify about a certain guy, we say that this guy, this Kohen, we say that his mother was previously divorced. Or we say these guys came and say this mother had chalitza. As we explained, if a person dies, they didn't leave over any children. The wife is there's a mitzvah for the brother to marry the wife. If the deceased brother doesn't want to marry the wife, what does he do? She removes his shoe. And there's a process. So if this woman had chalitza, if this was done to her, it's similar to, it has resemblances of a divorce, because this act had to untie them, like a get unties the woman from the husband. The chalitza unties the deceased, the brother who died, his wife, from the living brother. So therefore, the rabbi said that Kohen cannot marry a woman who had chalitza done to her. A Kohen can marry a widow. A Kohen cannot marry a widow who had chalitza that was done to her. And the two witnesses came and said that this child's mother had this history, that she either had chalitza done to her or she had a get. And then two other witnesses come and say, you guys, you couldn't have been there. You couldn't have witnessed this, the divorce. You weren't there. You were with us in another place. So even though the first pair of witnesses wanted to invalidate the Kohen from eating truma, they wanted to say that he's a halal, he's an unfit Kohen. And even if these two witnesses are Kohanim, we don't do to the Kohanim what they wanted to do to the others. What do we do to those Kohanim? Those witnesses, we give them lashes. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says, you do asisem lo kashezamam la, you do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the person that they testified against. There's a pasuk in the Torah. Okay, the mission doesn't need to bring the pasuk because the mission knows the pasuk. The mission is telling us a bit, right? The mission is telling us a chidush. Here we have a situation. It's novel. It's a novel idea that, even though the Torah itself says you do to witnesses what they wanted to do to the others, but comes the mission tells us, by the way, there are exceptions to the rule. A lot of times there's a rule, but you got to know the exceptions too. Because the exception is also the halakha. Because if you don't follow one area again, if you don't follow the exceptions, then you're going against the rule, the halakha. If there's an exception, the exception is based on Torah law. And then Gemara is going to show us how do you know that this is an exception to the rule? You tell me this is an exception. How do you know? Why are you saying it's an exception? Maybe it's not. That's what the Gemara is going to do for us. And that's how the Gemara explains our mission, where our mission is coming off of, where it's connected to. So that's what the Gemara said. Now, Minani Mile. So now the Gemara asked the question: how do we know that we don't? When the witnesses go ahead and they testified about this Kohen, and they said that the Kohen's mother had a previous history. She was divorced before his father married her, or she had chalitza done. How do we know? And then they were framers, and they were found to be false. How do we know that we don't do to these witnesses what they wanted to do to the Kohen? So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says the Amakra. Because if you analyze the psukim, when it talks about doing to the witnesses what they wanted to do to their fellow, it says, Vasisem lo, you do to him. The punishment is very specific to the framers, to the witnesses, you punish them. You don't punish the children of the witnesses. The children of the witnesses are not supposed to be punished for the sin of their fathers that they framed someone. If you're going to make these Kohanim, who are these false witnesses, who framed this guy, if you're going to make the Kohanim halalim, you're going to invalidate them as Kohanim. You're going to say they're pasul, because they wanted to invalidate this other kid, this other Kohen. They want to say the other Kohen is invalid because their mother has a history and the father married a divorcee. And now you want to go ahead and make the witnesses who are Kohanim also invalid. You want to make them invalid for Tumah. But if you make them invalid, you know what happens? You make the children invalid because they're Kohanim. Their children are also going to be Kohanim. So if you invalidate them, what are you doing in sense? You're saying they're not Kohanim. You're hurting their children as well. And the Torah says, when we do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to their brother, you specifically do to them what they wanted to do. You punish them. The punishment is specifically for those witnesses who framed the guy. We don't punish the children of the witness of the framers. And if you go ahead and you make the framers unfit for kahuna, what you're doing is, it's a biological thing. The framers and the children also will be knocked out from kahuna. You want to say something, Nathan? We got a winner. Nathan asked the Gemara's next question. So let's go ahead and just invalidate that generation, those witnesses who were the framers, those Kohanim who were the false testament witnesses, and don't invalidate their children. Amazing question. Look at the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says, when you ask the Gemara's question, that means you're really on target. That means you're on target. You know, that means when you're thinking like the Gemara, that's then you know you're doing it very good. So the Gemara says, let's invalidate him. And let's not invalidate his children. Let's just take these witnesses who were the framers, who framed these Kohen, and let's make these guys unfit for Trumah. We should invalidate them. They can't eat Trumah anymore because that's what they wanted to do to that other Kohen. They wanted to validate him from eating Trumah. Let's do to them what they wanted to do to the others. And now hopefully will serve as a strong deterrent that people won't get up and framing somebody. That's the question, exactly. That's the question of the Mishnah. Because the Mishnah says we don't do it. We don't invalidate them as Kohanim. We just give them lashes. Why give them lashes? Let's invalidate as Kohanim and let's do to them what they wanted to do to the others. They wanted to knock out this nice little Kohen from so now the question is asking Gemara's question. So why don't we just say like Nathan says? Just invalidate those Kohanim who testified falsely. Let's invalidate from them from being the fit for kahuna, from eating truma, and let's not validate their children's morning jobs. So the Gemara says, you know what? But the Torah says you have to do to them what they wanted to do to others. When they came along, these witnesses, and they said, these first pair of witnesses, we'll call them the framers. I like to refer to them as the framers, right? They framed somebody, right? Is that a good way to refer to them as David? You have a better way? So what did they want to do? When they came to court, the first pair of witnesses, they come to court, they say about, you know what, this Kohen, their mother, this guy is this Kohen, father's a Kohen, their mother was originally married before the father married her, was originally divorced before the father married her, before this Kohen married her, and they came to court to say that testimony. And therefore the child will be a halal. Because since she had a past, that she was previously divorced, the father was a Kohen, had no right to marry her, and now they're saying that this child that was born from this marriage is unfit for kuna, because this father married the father married a divorcee. That's
Rabbi, I have a question. Does the motive of the framer matter at all? Does that ever come into play?
We're gonna have to see in the Gemara more about that. It's a good question. So far the mission
all
did not.
This framing to what purpose? What's the motive for them to frame? Is it money? Is it what are the motivations for these framings?
Right. It could be. First of all, sometimes people might want to get somebody, and they want to get this guy, and therefore they want to invalidate his children by punishing the guy's children. Let's say the guy, they know that the most important thing to him is the fact they take pride in that they're Kohanim, and therefore they want to go ahead, warning everybody, and they want to go ahead and frame him perhaps. Or sometimes people think they're doing something good. They heard a rumor, they heard something, and therefore they're going to come testify about it. They think maybe perhaps they want to make it real, even though they didn't see it themselves, but they talked themselves into it. The fact that we heard enough about it, that's enough for us to testify. Perhaps maybe that's why they're coming to forward. That would be like sometimes people talk themselves.
The Gemara parses the crime in different segments. I was wondering if it parses the motive at all. Okay, is the motive money or pride or envy?
Right. So we say that if someone goes ahead and murders somebody, we don't make a difference what his motive is. The only thing we do make a difference is whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally. That's what we look at. The act, was it done, so I presume it's similar by the motives of here, but we have to look in the Gemara as the Gemara discusses all different situations. Right, so Tosfos gets into that issue. But here we're talking about Kohanim, the witness of Kohanim, so therefore you can do to them. Right, excellent question, excellent point. So the Gemara says the following. The law is, and you have to, Torah says you got to do to the witness, morning Mr. Feldman, morning Danny, morning Mark. The Torah says you have to do to the witnesses what they wanted to do to the other guy. And if you go ahead and if you invalidate the Kohen himself, the witnesses themselves, and you don't invalidate the children, you are not doing to them what they wanted to do to the other guy. Because what did the witnesses want to do? The witnesses wanted to invalidate this Kohen and the Kohen's children, because they say that this child was a halal. They said the child's parents and mother was previously divorced before his father married her. So the witnesses wanted to not only invalidate this Kohen, they came to invalidate the Kohen's children and grandchildren. So therefore, the only time we do to the witnesses what they wanted to do is if you're going to be able to exactly do to the witnesses if you're able to fulfill what they're going to do to them. But if you're going to go ahead and you're going to do a partial thing, you're going to say, I'm going to do to the witnesses partially what they wanted to do. They wanted to go ahead and make this guy invalid, unfit. You're going to say we're only going to make unfit the witnesses themselves and not their children. So you're not doing to the witnesses what they wanted to do to others. They wanted to clearly make all the generations invalid. And you want to go ahead and say, we're only going to validate the witnesses themselves and not their descendants. So you're not doing to them what they wanted to do to the other guy. They wanted to invalidate the other guy and his descendants. So therefore, if you can't, and since we cannot invalidate the other guy and his descendants, we can't invalidate the witnesses and their descendants. Why? Because the Torah says you punish the witnesses. You don't punish the witnesses and their descendants. So therefore, since you cannot punish their descendants, and by punishing just them, you're not doing to them what they wanted to do to the other guy, because what they wanted to do was to invalidate the other guy's descendants. So therefore, we give them lashes. We give them a different type of punishment. There's other things to give. There's other punishments to give. We give them lashes for being these framers, for framing this guy. That's what the Gemara says. Why? This is the exception to the rule. Again, is it clear? If a person frames a Kohen and says that a Kohen is unfit for Kohuna, because they say he's a halal, they say his mother was previously divorced, and these witnesses were found to be false, they had no right to testify because they were in a different country at the time. They say they were there, they witnessed the divorce, their mother got divorced. They were in the room when their mother got divorced. And then we find out that they weren't in the room. They were in China. They weren't in the room. They were in China at the time. But they wanted not only to invalidate the Kohen, they wanted to invalidate the Kohen and the Kohen's children. And we can't punish these witnesses to invalidate them and their children, because the Torah says you only punish the witnesses who framed you only punish them and not their descendants. So what do we do to these witnesses? We give them lashes. That's what the Gemara says. Maskef Ravina. Now, Bar Pada says a different explanation. Bar Pada says, I'm going to tell you a different reason why we do not invalidate the okay. Bar Pada says, what do you say? Next page, we're on A3. Everybody return the page. We're on A3. Bar Pada says, I have a Kal V'chomer. I have a Kal V'chomer that teaches us that you cannot invalidate the witnesses. If the witnesses are Kohanim, we're not gonna, and they framed somebody, and they said that this guy is invalid Kohen. That's how they framed him. I have a Kal V'chomer that we're not gonna make the witnesses unfit for Kohuna. We're not. I have a Kal V'chomer that teaches us that we cannot give the witnesses a status of disqualified Kohen. They wanted to disqualify that Kohen. I have a Kal V'chomer that we don't disqualify the witnesses who framed them. We're going to give them some other punishment. We're not going to disqualify them as witnesses, as Kohanim. Right? That's the question of the Gemara. That's going to be the Gemara's answer. But that's going to be the Gemara's answer to the Kavach. But first, we have to say what the Kavach is. Yeah. What's the Kavach? Let's see. Hold on. Ma ha-mechalel eine mischalel. A Kohen. A Kohen marries a divorcee. What's the law? The Kohen marries a divorcee. Chas v'shalom. He did a big sin. He married a divorcee. He wasn't following the law. The children become unfit for kahuna. The children become. He now ruins his lineage that they're not Kohanim. They can't do Yitzhak because the Kohen was not. You weren't allowed to marry that woman, and you went in and you married that divorcee, and the child now becomes a halal. But the Kohen himself, when he marries that divorcee, he himself does not become unfit for kahuna.
Rabbi,
yes.
The children of that marriage are disqualified, not the children of a previous marriage.
Not himself. The Kohen himself. The Kohen who went ahead.
How about the children of a previous marriage?
And they were married, and there was nothing wrong with the wife, and the wife was not a divorce.
No.
Correct?
He's married. He has children. Then his wife passes away or something. He remarries a divorcee.
The first children are perfect. No question, 100%. Right.
Okay.
But he himself, the Kohen who marries this divorcee, he doesn't lose his status of kahuna. He's still able to eat truma. He's not following the Torah. He's doing a sin that he married a divorcee, but that does not disqualify him as eating truma as a Kohen. His children, he disqualified his children that are born from that union, from that forbidden union, he disqualifies those children. But he himself, it didn't disqualify him. Yes.
What about that divorce was not a Jewish marriage?
It has to have been. She has to have been married according to Jewish law. And now, so the Gemara says, so if the man who creates the children that are, he disqualifies the children, he causes his children to become disqualified, but he himself does not get disqualified. The Kohen who marries divorcee, he himself doesn't become disqualified. So somebody who is trying to disqualify a Kohen, meaning the witnesses, what were the witnesses? The witnesses are not as like the husband, like the Kohen who marries a divorcee. The Kohen who marries a divorcee, he's actually disqualifying his children. But even when he disqualifies his children, he himself doesn't become disqualified. So the witnesses who were trying to disqualify somebody else, they were attempting to disqualify this Kohen. So certainly they should not become unfit. Meaning, you hear what the Gemara says? If somebody who actually disqualifies his children, yet he himself doesn't become disqualified, the Kohen who marries a divorcee, he disqualifies his children from kahuna, but he himself doesn't become disqualified. The witnesses who framed the Kohen, they were trying to disqualify somebody else, but they did not disqualify him. They tried to disqualify. Certainly they themselves don't become disqualified. Because if someone actually disqualifies someone, they themselves don't become disqualified. So for attempting to disqualify somebody, you yourself should not become disqualified. We'll continue tomorrow and have a great day. We had a beautiful crowd today. A lot of energy in the room, a lot of holy neshama. I tell you, the class is better when there's more people in the room. No question about it. Say what?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you all for joining in.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody. Charles, thank you for joining in. And thank you, Jaime. Thank you, Yosef and Morris and everybody. I'm not sure. It's a good question. We might need a couple. Osco's having a sale, 30% off. Yeah, 30% off sale. If you go to Osco, if you want to get a couple of Gemaras. Yeah? Okay. Which size do you want to save? Okay, whatever size. Okay.
Which one you want?
Okay,
Hello.
okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for being on. Have a great day.